Hello, everybody. It is round 3, or day 3, rather, round 5 of the 2023 NFL Draft. It's been a long couple days, everybody.
It has.
John Schmeelk, Paul Dottino with you, and get on the lines. We'll take your calls reacting to the Giants' pick here in round number 5 and what they've done the rest of the draft at 201-939-4513. We'll go a full hour with you, so stay tuned. We'll get you on. We'll have some longer conversations that we've had the last couple of days because we have a little bit more time. And get in, and we'll talk NFL Draft with you again. It's 201-939-4513. But we're here to react to the Giants' 5th-round pick. Remember, they did not have a selection in round 4 because of the trade-up for Jalen Hyatt. So the Giants in round number 5 select Eric Gray, running back out of the University of Oklahoma, measured at the combine at 5'9.5", 207 pounds. And Paul, he started his career at Tennessee, transferred out after the coaching change after 2 seasons, went to Oklahoma, finishes 2 years there, and is coming off a senior season where he rushed for over 1,300 yards, 6.5 yards per carry, 11 touchdowns on the ground, a very productive player, and really a player at running back that can help you in the run game and the pass game.
Yeah, I really like him as a developmental back. I do think he's got 3-down potential as we move forward. Now, here's the thing about him. He doesn't necessarily have that burst or that second gear and that long speed. He's not a breakaway back, John, and that's why he winds up lasting this long. But he was always part of that cluster. I wrote down, I like his patience, his vision. He's sturdy. He's got some sturdiness to him. Remember, he's under 5'10", but he's over 200 pounds. So he's got some strength to him. I wrote down I liked his hands, and I liked his ability to take the blitz on. Not afraid at all to get rugged and tough with linebackers who are going to come after the quarterback. So, again, gear, not necessarily there, not necessarily a home run threat, but a guy who clearly has developmental potential, and he played for a big program.
He did, and look, he was very productive, and when I watched him, I thought he had a chance to get into the back end of day 2, more likely a 4th-round type of pick. I didn't have him that far behind Tajay Spears. I thought they were very similar players. That's a running back that went around number 3 in this draft. And, Paul, you mentioned his strength. For me, it was his quickness, where he can change direction quickly. He makes people miss an open space because of his size. I think he really kind of has that low center of gravity where he can take hits, stay on his feet, and make moves. I think that's a really strong part of his game. And he's really effective in the passing game. So I think you talk about him as a developmental back. To me, he could step in day 1 and be a 3rd-down back for you. That's how effective he is in the passing game, and he can, give Saquon a rest on 3rd downs, and you can put him in screen situations, try to isolate him on linebackers on angle routes, and you can use him as a very effective player in space, given his quickness. He's a little bit bigger than the other player was, but he's kind of Darren Sproulsy a little bit too in the way you can use him in the passing game, but also in the running attack.
Well, I say more developmental because I think he comes in with a skill set that could definitely help you in some packages now. But over the course of time, there is some upside there, even though he doesn't have the long burst of breakaway speed, which is why he drops to this point. If he had the breakaway speed, he's not going in the 5th round.
No, that's correct, of course.
Okay, so that's the point to be made. But there is still upside here where I do think he could potentially be more than just a substitution kind of back. I think he has that ability.
Well, I think he could be I'm not sure if he's ever going to be an 18 carry a game, 20 carry a game guy. But you don't really need that anymore, though. No. That's my point.
He could be the lead guy in a rotation, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you have 2 guys,
at some point.
If you have 2 guys that are splitting it, he could be the guy that's more of your pass catcher, 3rd down type of guy. If you have more of a bigger bruising between the tackles type of back that's going to drag people, work in short yardage situations, but a very, very good player. And the Giants, remember, at running back, Paul, Saquon Barkley's just on the 1-year franchise tag. Matt Breida's just on a 1-year deal. They have Gary Brightwell, but he's kind of more of a special teamer than a pure running back. So they need guys at this position, to your point, to develop down the road, to be a long-term part of this backfield looking more than 1 year in the future.
That's exactly right. Lance always likes to talk about you're not just drafting for this year. You have to look down the road. And that's why, I had tweeted out this morning, developmental running back, some of those guys will go in the 4th round, and you're not going to get them now that you traded away that pick. You're going to have to look in the 5th round for that developmental running back. And what did the Giants just get? Again, value meeting need. This has been a really, really efficient group of picks the Giants have taken so far.
Yeah, remember, this is the Giants' lone fifth-round pick. They traded their other fifth-round pick. So now they're going to select one more time in the sixth round, two more time in the seventh round as we move forward here in the 2023 NFL Draft.
This pick, by the way, was the compensatory that they got in the Evan Ingram free agency signing with the Jaguars.
Correct. 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. The other fifth-round pick is the pick they used to trade up in round number one spot to grab their first-round player, Deontay Banks. So just FYI, that's why the Giants only have one fifth-round pick when they had two heading into the draft. All right, let's get to your phone calls here, guys. 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. We'll take your calls. We'll stick with you as long as you'll listen to us and give us a call and talk some Giants draft with us. Again, doesn't just have to be the fifth-round pick. We talk about all the moves the Giants have made so far in this draft process. Let's go to David in Florida. He will lead us off. Hey, David.
How you doing?
What's up?
What's up, man? I was wondering, so we obviously drafted a running back, and I was wondering, how do you think he's going to play into the game plan? Obviously, we still have Saquon Barkley and Matt Breida.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how big of a role he's necessarily going to play this year because I think Breida and Barkley are a pretty good 1-2 punch and they're veterans. But if either one of those guys get banged up a little bit and you need someone to take some stuff off their plate, I think Gray can fit that situation, and I think right off the bat, if you want to work him in on third downs in year one, I think you can. You know, whether that's reducing Saquon snaps a little bit or reducing Breida snaps a little bit, I'm not sure. But there'll be a competition, Paul, and if Eric Gray shows that he deserves to be on the field in year one in the offseason and practice and training camp, Brian Daboll and this offensive coaching staff is smart and savvy enough to find a role for him.
Let's just remember, the Giants have elevated themselves now from a team that was significantly retooling to a team that's made the playoffs and is now doing more tweaking, which basically means you want as much competition as possible at all spots, and may the better man win. It's really that simple. Nobody's going to be given or handed snaps. That's not the way it works, especially with this coaching staff. But the way the Giants are constructed right now, they're looking to make waves now. They're trying to get to the next level. And there's not going to be patience for guys who are either getting hurt or slow to mature and develop. There's not going to be patience for that because this is time for the Giants to move up the ladder.
Most definitely.
All right, appreciate the call, David. Good stuff. 201-939-4513. Tom in Stratford's up next. Hey, Tom.
Hey, guys. I'm loving the draft. Another excellent selection as far as I'm concerned by Joe Shane there. Last night when I called, though, and I was questioning Schmitz over Osiris,
Yeah.
I was implying Osiris to play center, not guard, because I know he played center, I think, his whole entire junior year. But, I'll defer, obviously, to you guys as the experts. But, we came close to getting Chase Brown, though,
Yeah, we did. He went, about like 15 picks or 10 picks or so in the fifth round before the Giants picked? Yeah, I like, you know me, I love him, man. He's great.
I know. It was close. I was thinking about you, too, when he went off the board. I was like, I know who's going to be just as upset as I am. But then I, did a quick check, and I saw, Eric Gray, Oklahoma. He's got good stats. So now I'm hoping Andre Carter falls off in the sixth round. He lost a lot of weight because in the Army you got to do all that running and stuff. But, now I guess you don't have to serve right away after you graduate.
Correct.
Okay, so now that he doesn't have to do all that,
he's grandfathered
cardio.
in. That's why. Because they did change the rule, but he's grandfathered in, so he's going to be allowed to come to the NFL right away.
Oh, that's wonderful. I hope he falls to us because I think, if he can get off that cardio and get into the weight room, we can build him up again. He'll still have that quickness. He's an Army guy. He's a good character. And, the theme of the Giants continues. Smart, tough, dependable, and also it looks like quick now.
Awesome. Good stuff, Tom. Appreciate the call, man.
I know. I'll get off the phone so you can take out the people. Thank you.
Appreciate it. And look, Carter would be an excellent developmental player. He's a guy you probably need a year or two in the weight room to get him where he needs to be strength-wise, but he was productive at Army. that could be a pick you look at down the road. And I double-checked it because I did not think Osiris Torrance had played center at Florida or Louisiana, and he hadn't. All his starts were at guard.
Yeah, I didn't think so either.
I didn't. Well, neither. That's why I wanted to check in Dane Brugler's book here just to make sure I had that information right, and I know Dane has it right. So, no, he was primarily a guard, and you watch Torrance play. He doesn't look like a center. He looks like a big mauling guard. So that's why I think they went the Schmitz route instead of the Torrance route, because obviously center was more of a need.
We did discuss last night, and I know I used the term center by trade. It is better when you're taking a rookie, okay, that the guy is a center by trade. It's a little easier to convert him after he's had some experience in the league, John, because as Sean O'Hara told us last night, you got big adjustments to make mentally and physically when you come into the National Football League. And it's just a lot easier for a rookie who's been a center to be a center.
And for 6 years in college, by the way. 5 playing, one of which was a red shirt. So he's one of those guys that had the benefit of the COVID
Schmitz
year.
is
John Michael Schmitz. So you hope he can step in pretty quickly here. His body's obviously more mature as a 24-year-old as opposed to a 21 or 22-year-old. So you hope he can kind of step in and be a big factor there and win that job right away. 201-939-4513. Join Beth Dable and Marie Shane for Sleep Out Women Unite on Thursday, May 4th to benefit Covenant House, New Jersey. Women will join in solidarity and sleep on the field of MetLife Stadium to support youth overcoming homelessness and survivors of human trafficking. For more information, visit sleepout.org and join Beth Dable and Marie Shane for that great event. Let's go to Dan in Brooklyn. He's up next. Hi, Dan.
What's going on, guys?
What's going on?
So love the draft. I think we've honestly knocked it out of the park. I had 2 questions. One of my draft crushes was or is A.T. Perry. Are you surprised he hasn't been drafted yet? Or
yes. I mean, yeah, Dan, obviously you're a listener, so I've talked about him a lot on our shows. I had him as an end of a second-round player. My guess is, and usually when something like this happened, that's really weird. I'm pretty sure Daniel Jeremiah had him in his top 100 as well. And usually when you get to this point and a guy who most people thought was a third-round pick at the very least is in the 6th round, there's either something medical that we don't know about or there's something off the field that we don't know about that maybe have teams a little worried. Because, look, there's information that the teams have that we don't. Because if you just go off the tape, and I know I was higher on him than Paul was, but I'm sure Paul didn't expect him to be sitting here in round 6 either.
No.
So
no,
I'm sure there's something that teams know that we don't.
Okay. Curious to see where he ends up. And then second point, obviously training camp hasn't happened. We don't know how any of these players are going to be. But hypothetically, if the season started today, who is on the field for us on the first play? What personnel grouping do you think we run out with?
On offense or defense? Offense or defense?
On offense.
I would probably say that, and I'm guessing rather than you're not asking for first down. You're saying what position group we're going to see most frequently is your question?
Yeah.
I imagine this is going to be an 11 personnel team. I think that's what we saw at the end of the year, Paul, and they kind of figured out their wide receiver rotation and how they wanted to work this. So I think Waller's your tight end. I think if Wando Robinson's healthy, you probably have Wando Robinson out there with Hodgins and
Hyatt.
I think it'll be a competition between Hyatt, Slayton, and Paris Campbell for that last spot. Would kind of be my guess there. Remember, Hyatt's a little raw, so Hyatt has some development to do as an all-around wide receiver. So I'm not sure if he's going to be like an 80% snap a game guy right off the start of the year, despite his speed. There might be some learning to do, but I think those 3 guys, and what do those 3 guys all have in common, by the way, really quick, Dan? They all run 4.4 or faster. So they'll just figure out which one of those speed guys are best, and that's the guy they'll plug in. If Wandell's not healthy, I think you'll see Paris Campbell in the slot, and then you'll have either probably Slayton or Hyatt as that second outside receiver. Paul, you think I have that right?
Yeah, well, because Campbell, with his experience, would be better suited to learn the slot here in this system, I would think, ahead of one of the other guys. I would think so.
And then, by the way, Shepard could be healthy too, and then he would be in the mix in there too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We just don't know if Shepard and Robinson will start on PUP.
Right.
We just don't know that.
Yeah.
That changes the equation.
I mean, honestly, I like that grouping a lot. I personally, obviously, Hyatt's raw, but if we're just putting somebody out there to take the top off the defense, again, we haven't seen him play, but I would almost dare to put Hyatt out there just because Slayton, God bless him, he's done what he's done, but I like the hands from Hyatt. I think he's got really good ball skills.
Yeah.
So I mean, just
No doubt about
for
that.
simply taking the top off the defense and just catching some balls. I don't know. I might start with Hyatt up there. But anyways, good coverage, guys. Thank you very much. Love the draft, and yeah, take care.
Thanks for listening and calling in, Dan. And I throw this out there too, Paul. You want to say something real quick? Go ahead.
I was going to say to you about Hyatt, and
Yeah, go ahead.
and a second what you said to me last night, and I didn't see him as much as a straight ahead receiver, but when I went back last night, because you had said to me, yeah, I think he's more of a deep threat. I looked, and what I found was a lot of tape of he'll come off the line, he'll make his move, and then that second gear
Oh, yeah.
just flies. I mean, it's like lightning. That second gear, the acceleration for me, his burst and acceleration on that second move is what really makes him a deep threat.
Yeah, it's like you're watching Top Gun and they flip the afterburners on.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you're
That's
like, all right,
exactly right.
we're into overdrive here.
Or in my case, the Batmobile.
Yeah. Where the fire starts spitting out
Exactly.
the engine. Right? Yeah, no, I got you. I got you. No, 100%. And I'll say this too. My answer was that the Giants would most frequently be in 11 personnel. I also think that you're going to see a lot of 12 out of them this year, and it's technically 12 because Darren Waller's a tight end.
Correct.
But it could be 12, but oh no, wait, they are running Waller as either an outside wide receiver or as a slot, and then it is 12, but it looks like 13,
Right.
but it looks like 11,
Right.
which is why a guy like Waller is so valuable because
Big
you
slot.
can use him in either or
boundary.
or just as an outside receiver, either one for sure. So I think that's what gives them a lot of flexibility with a guy like Waller in the building, which is why a tight end like that is useful because you can use him and you can line up like you're in 12, which is for fans that don't know, running back and 2 tight ends, or you can, and 2 wide receivers, or you can line up, you can still have Bellinger and Waller's 2 tight ends out there, and it's technically 12 personnel, which again, 2 tight ends, 2 wideouts, 1 running back, but you line up like you're in 11, which is 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers, and Waller's lined up as a receiver even though he's actually a tight end, which is why having a guy like him is really so handy. I know people say, well, they'd have an Ingram. They could do that with Ingram. Waller's a much better side-to-side, lateral quickness, get open, top-of-the-route player than Ingram was. Ingram might have been faster in a straight line, but I think Waller, in terms of playing the position, in terms of
Yes.
changing the direction and getting open at the top of the route, is a more effective, smoother player than Evan was. And
Absolutely. And to be honest, Evan was only able to use that type of athleticism and speed when he got downfield and he was wide open. It didn't seem like he was ever able to use it when he was in traffic. Waller does a better job in traffic.
yeah, I agree with that. I agree. 201-939-4513. Let's go to Lucas in New Jersey. He's up next. Hey, Lucas.
Hey guys, how you doing? Thanks for taking the call.
Hey, thanks for calling, man. What's up?
So totally agree. Waller, way better than Ingram. Ingram, scared to kind of get that great catch in that, crucial moment. Unfortunately for us, with the drops, but also really like the wide receiver we picked up and his burners and his Will Fuller comp. My question to you is twofold. Basically, what would you give the grade for our draft as of right now, and what do you think we're going to address next? And I'm happy to take this offline.
Okay, thank you for the call, Lucas. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
I am mandated to say I hate giving draft grades.
That's why I'm not going to do it.
But look, I think a lot of Giant fans will say this is an A, this is an A+. Well, you had to trade a lot of picks to get these guys. So I don't think it becomes a perfect draft. If you got these guys without having to trade anything to get them, I think then it's an A+, right? So I'll be a little bit of a tough grade. I'll go A- just because you had to trade the extra assets to get the players. But if you would have told me before, and I said this on our shows last night, and I
And do
stick
you
to
want to
it.
include Waller in the class since he was the third rounder?
I'm not doing that. We're talking about the draft. If you want to do that, A+, fine.
I'm just asking.
No, I don't do that. It's the guys you get on draft night, right? But if you would have told me on Wednesday night or Thursday morning that the Giants would walk away with Deontay Banks in round 1, John Michael Schmitz in round 2, and Jalen Hyatt in round 3, trade up or no, I would have laughed at you and said, well, get your head out of the clouds, dude. That's not how the real life works. You don't get everything you want in real life. Well, the Giants got pretty lucky. They got pretty much what they wanted in real life this time around. And, like I said, someone would have called up, I did this mock draft simulator on, Pro Football Focus, and these are the guys I got. I'm like, yeah, that's why it's a simulator. It's not the real thing. But the real thing turned out to look a lot like a mock draft simulator for this draft for the Giants. They got 3 players that I think worked out great. I'm a big Eric Gray fan. I think they got him a good round or 2 later than I would have picked him. I think he's a really good player. So I think value met need in the right rounds for the Giants in this draft, Paul, and I think they have to be very happy with the players that they got, not just from a need standpoint, but more importantly from just being really good football players.
I try to look at it in 2 ways because I will not do immediate grades. What I will say is value and need, those components matched up beautifully in each of their 4 picks. There is no question about that. And so that in itself is a win. What's the other win? Well, when you look at each one of these 4 guys, I think it's fair to say, and even you said it a little bit ago, there's a chance that Gray wins some rotational snaps in this offense.
Yeah.
You've got the ability to get something out of all 4 of these rookies immediately. Even as a developmental running back, you might get valuable snaps out of each of your first 4 picks in their rookie seasons. You can't always say that.
100% agree.
So for me, right now, on paper, I'm saying they satisfied the most key requirements, and that's as far as I'm going.
201-939-4513, hashtag Giants Chat. Back to the phones. Nick is in Brooklyn. Nick, what's up? Where in Brooklyn you at, Nick?
Fellas, good afternoon. How are you guys doing?
We're good.
Hi.
Good. So I just wanted to just make a quick little comment about our second and third round pick, Schmitz and Hyatt.
Sure.
I've been following both teams as like an avid enjoyer of college football. I think personally Schmitz is the overall best all-around center right now coming out of the draft. I think he has all the qualities you want as a center. I think he has the footwork you want from a center and the smarts that you want from a center. The only thing I've noticed with Hyatt, which I think he's a great receiver, he's very easily thrown off his route with a bigger corner defending him. If a corner is a little bit aggressive or the corner is stronger than him, it's very hard for him to get past these corners. Smaller corners or corners that are not or the corners that are less aggressive, he flies by them without a problem. I think the only problem that I see with him is when he goes up against corners like Slade, which he will twice a year. When he goes against corners like Ramsey, very aggressive corners. Can we expect him to be reliable? Are the Giants going to have him put on some weight? What are we looking?
No, I appreciate the call, and I think you make some good points. And we talked about some of that last night, Nick, where the way Tennessee used him in that old school Art Briles, Baylor type of spread him out type of college system. They either had him inside or they had him stacked behind another wide receiver. Pro Football Focus keeps track of this, and I think he was pressed over his entire college career like 50 or 60 times and had to deal with press coverage. And Paul, press coverage doesn't necessarily mean you're getting jammed at the line. It could be press and then bail.
Correct.
So he hasn't had to deal a lot with physicality at the line of scrimmage. He is only 175 pounds, despite the fact he's 6 feet tall, so he's not a heavy player. But if the Giants, and look, the Giants' offensive coaches are smart. They will scheme up free releases for him. And it's not that difficult to do. You just put him in motion, before the play, and it's going to be hard for guys to press him at the line of scrimmage. And if you can do that, allow him to take advantage of his speed, he becomes a more adept route runner. Again, not his fault, just at Tennessee, their offense. You don't run that many routes. It's goes, it's slants, it's posts, and it's comebacks. That's what they run
It's
there.
half the tree.
Yes.
That's it.
Which is fine. That's not a criticism of the player. It's just a fact of that's what the offense was at Tennessee. So once he develops those skills, he learns how to get off a press once he starts seeing them. Lord knows he's going to see press in practice every single day and get a lot of work on it.
Wink will make sure of it.
Based on how Wink plays. So he'll learn those skills and continue to get better. But yeah, early on, how he deals with physical corners and presses, that's something to keep an eye on. If you're a fan, you come out to training camp in August, absolutely.
I will add this. If you're a defensive coordinator, right, and you're lining up opposite the Giants, now let's assume for a second that Robinson and Shepard aren't starting the season on the active. Let's assume that for just 1 second. Okay. So now you've got a matchup with Hodgins, Campbell, Hyatt, and maybe Crowder, who's a very crafty slot receiving wide receiver.
And throwing Waller, too, right? You got to match up with him also.
Well, okay, I was only talking about the wide receivers.
But,
if you want to throw him in the passing game.
He's in the passing game.
Okay,
yeah.
So Hyatt is not necessarily going to draw your first or second, and there's a chance he may not even draw your third best cover guy.
Yeah, and what I love about pairing a great tight end with a speed guy is that it puts your safeties in a bind, right? That safety can't lurk as a robber in the middle of the field to help on those. If you go back and you watch Waller with the Raiders, it was endless crossing patterns and drag routes across the middle of the field. That's all they did with him. You know why?
Constantly.
He changed his direction well. He's big and he's fast. So it's hard for these, either linebackers or safeties to stick with him going across the middle of the field because of his athleticism. And it's hard to have help in that area if you have to keep a safety over the top because Jalen Hyatt runs a 4-4 flat and runs by everybody. So I think having that speed component is really going to open up the field, not just for Waller, but for Isaiah Hodgins, who's that middle-of-the-field possession type of receiver, and whomever the Giants have in the slot. Remember, before Wan'Dale Robinson got hurt last year, pulling training camp, Daniel Jones was peppering him with passes within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. So that's why having that speed component, and I look, I'm not in their heads upstairs. I don't know why they did it. But if I was thinking about it, having that speed component to free up the middle of the field for guys like Waller, Robinson, Hodgins, it's essential to make an offense. I mean, look at how Travis Kelce had so much middle of the field to work with because Tyreek Hill is pushing those safeties down the field. I mean, it's just the way you utilize a tight end.
The other thing you have to remember about Waller, and I didn't watch enough of Raiders games on a week-in, week-out basis to know this, but some of these premier catching tight ends will actually draw a corner in coverage.
Yeah, he did too.
So I don't know how often that happened when he was out in Vegas, but if you're the defensive coordinator now and you're putting your real corner on Hodgins, you're putting a real corner on Slayton, you're putting a real corner on Campbell, if you've got a fourth corner and you're putting them on Waller, what do you think Hyatt's going up against?
Yeah.
I mean, again, you're talking about so many weapons now that the Giants have in this passing game. Daniel Jones is going to have Thanksgiving like almost every week. He's got a chance to pick from the stuffing, the potatoes, the vegetable, the cranberry sauce. He's got a whole smorgasbord to look at.
Surprised you didn't go with the Italian feast there. You went with more of a traditional American feast.
Why not? Come on, why not?
201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. Folks, don't forget, go subscribe to not just Big Blue Kickoff Live on your favorite podcast platform. Check out our other podcasts, our draft season podcast. Tony Pauline and I do everything NFL draft. We'll have two, maybe a third episode in 2 weeks talking about next year's draft class remaining. Go subscribe to draft season. Search for on your favorite podcast platform. And same for the Giants Huddle podcast. We're going to have a podcast coming up at the end of the weekend with interviews with all of the players that the Giants drafted with Sean O'Hara and Madeline Burke. So make sure you go check that out again. Subscribe to the Giants Huddle, draft season, Big Blue Kickoff Live on your favorite podcast platform. Leave a 5-star positive review if you're on Apple Podcast, or go to giants.com/podcast or the Giants mobile app to find all of our podcast offerings. 201-939-4513. Let's go back to the very busy phones and say hello to Victor in Florida. Victor, what's going on?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Hey, what's up, Victor?
So far, I'm giving this draft an A+, okay? I'm happy with everything they did, okay? That's number one. Number two, I'm pissed off so much because the NFL Sunday ticket, I won't be able to get it anymore because DirecTV got rid of it. So how am I going to watch the Giant games? But that's another story. I got a question for Paul.
Well, Victor, real fast. The Giants are a lot better now. You should get a lot more national TV games down there. So I think you'll probably see more of the Giants than you think. Go ahead.
And to piggyback, to piggyback off what John just said, the new rule in the NFL is that every team can be scheduled for 6 primetime games with the option to be flexed into a 7th. I mean, that's more than they've ever allowed before.
Yep.
So you're going to see a lot of the Giants because you know the networks are going to love what the Giants and the Jets are starting to do in terms of interest.
And the Giants will get a lot of those 425 national games.
Oh, I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will.
Go ahead, Victor.
Okay, I got a question for Paul.
Yes.
Paul, you don't know timer like me, okay? I've been a Giant fan for over 60 years, okay?
Yes, sir.
Now, in the 70s, the Giants, I don't remember exactly the year, but the Giants had the overall number 1 pick. They traded it to Dallas, and Dallas...
You're talking about the Craig Morton trade, when they traded for Craig Morton and Randy White became the Cowboys selection. Yes.
You got it.
I know.
You're awesome. You're awesome. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you, Victor. Appreciate the call.
Be
I think that
well.
was your uncle, right, Dom, calling in right there? Victor down in Florida? 201-939-4513. And, yes, Paul still has a something stuck in his craw over that trade from back in the day. That happened more than 10 years before I was born. So there you go.
It's painful. Randy White turned out to be really good.
I understand. I get it.
And Craig Morton was awful.
It was also 50 years ago.
It still hurts.
I love you, Paul. You're the best. 201-939-4513. Hugo in New Jersey's up next. Hugo, what's going on, man?
Hey guys. I'm just another happy Giant fan. I love the way it's gone. It's been handled very strategically, I think by Joe Shane. And now we're at the part of the draft where it's late in the draft and it's time to pick up positions that aren't as valued. So running back makes sense. I'm assuming at some point here an off-ball linebacker might make sense. So, and I think that marries up with sort of my view of where we need bodies on the roster to fill out the roster. I think we need another body at off-ball linebacker. And, John, I want to ask you one guy that's still on the board, Ivan Pace Jr. of Cincinnati, and get your thoughts on him. And the other place I think we need a body is sort of a third rotational pass rusher. Having said that, that's a premium position, so hard to pick up someone at this point in the draft. But in the past we've had guys like Kyler Fackrell and Marcus Golden, who were veterans in the rotation, who gave us actually valuable snaps. Just wondering if there's anyone at this point out in the free agent market, maybe up there in age perhaps, that can give us some valuable snaps. And the final thing, I'm gonna do a quick comment on each of our draft picks, but certainly from looking at it on TV, we have the coolest draft room of any team in the NFL for sure.
It's cool.
I always thought Dallas had a cool draft room, but I think we've exceeded what they have. On the players we've drafted, I think one of the underrated things about Deonte Banks is his willingness to stick his nose in there in the running game.
Yep.
And I really like that in a cornerback. My favorite all-time corner, Paul would know the name, was Mark Collins.
The best.
Back in the 80s. And, man, he came up in run support, and he was just a terror in run support. So in some ways, Banks may also be part of the equation of improving our run defense. I think with John Michael Schmitz, I know our friend Len loves centers, but he also worries about size differentials. I'll just note that this guy was a wrestler, and as we know, we've seen guys in 280, 300 pounds throw around people in their 340s and 350s because they have lower body strength and know how to use leverage. So I take some comfort in the fact that he's only slightly above 300, the fact that he's a former wrestler. And I got to say, I was impressed. When I looked at height, that guy just eats up space. And he does it almost like effortlessly. It's just like smooth. That speed is just very, very smooth. Almost no wasted motion. It's just incredible to watch how much space he eats up, and his strides are pretty long. So yeah, look, I think Joe Shane has done a remarkable job. I remember after the first Dallas game last year, I called up and said we need some speed. At least put Slayton on the field, which we eventually did, to get some speed. And now we're talking about potentially putting a track team out there. It's just I've never seen a transformation that quickly. So lots of compliments to the front office. But I would like you to talk about
Pace.
potential spots of needs to fill out the roster and your opinion of Ivan Pace Jr.
Thank you, Hugo. Appreciate the call. And you heard Joe Shane in the press conference last night after the third round saying that, look, we thought team speed on both sides of the ball was something we had to improve after watching the tape last year with the coaching staff, and that's something that they certainly focused on. I'll talk about Ivan Pace Jr. here, Paul. I'm a big fan. His tape's fun. He blitzes well. He's all over the place. He hits running backs really hard. And you're like, oh, man, this guy, he looks good. He could be a day 2 pick. And then you take a look at what he weighed in at the combine.
Yeah.
And he was 5'10", 231 pounds, and just not very long with 30-inch arms. So he's a guy where the tape and the production is phenomenal, but you wonder if it can transfer to the NFL linebacker just because he's a smaller guy. And I'll just say this. I know Paul and I usually differ on this philosophy. When I'm taking a look at late round 6, round 7, day 3 picks, I'm not looking to fill needs at that point. I'm just trying to find guys on my board that have traits that make me think they can make it as a player in the league. So that's what I'm focusing on. They're not playing right away anyway because they're 6th and 7th round picks more likely than not. So give me guys with traits that I think can develop, and those are the guys I'll take. And if you really need to fill needs, you either should have used an earlier pick or you've done something in free agency. So that's how I view the 6th and 7th round picks.
Yeah, I understand that. And that's a very large component for me, too. I was always told that the measurables don't lie. If the guy's got really good measurables and you can pick him up in the 6th or 7th round, well, you might be able to find a place for him. But there's also that mantra on the other side, and that's where John and I differ a little bit. You don't just waste a pick to waste a pick. You have to say, well, look, if we're stacked at safety, let's say, and the guy has really good measurables at safety, but we know we've got 4 safeties that are better than he is, and he can't make the 53 as a safety, then you don't take him, even if his measurables are really good.
Well, make the 53 fair.
And so that was always the other part of the question that I leaned on a little more heavily than you did, is that I need to know, can he have a chance to beat out somebody on my 53? And that always, that question will always be whispered in the back of my head as I'm going deep. But I'll ask you this. Hugo, thanks for the call. I'll ask you this, because I was sitting down with my dad was on the phone this morning, and he said, who are our kick returners? And I said, well, right now, Gary Brightwell does kickoffs, and I'm guessing Crowder might be the punt return guy, maybe Darnay Holmes, maybe Slayton.
Did Paris Campbell do any returns for the Colts?
I thought he did some kickoffs.
I'd have to double check that. I'm not sure either.
My point is this. There was no quick response or concrete answer, or an answer that necessarily made me jump for joy. So I ask you this, John, and I know it's kind of hard to say just draft a specialist, but there is no true gunner on this team right now.
He did 7 kick returns, Paris Campbell, in 2019.
Okay.
That's it.
So there's no Renee Thompson, Keon Crossan, Dominic Hickson, Michael
traits.
Thomas.
So I think you're looking at traits then. You look at guys that are really fast that you think can return or play gunner.
I would love for them at this point. They got a 6 and they got 2 7s. Would they maybe either use a spot, and it's hard because then it's a luxury kind of, but can they find a guy who has been an explosive returner at the NCAA level, may not be able to play a position, but an explosive returner at the NCAA level who also gets down and makes tackles and kick coverage? If they can find one of those guys, and we don't scout those guys at the combine, we don't talk to these guys like Brugler and Pauline about those guys.
I was going to say that I don't have a good name for you.
None of us do. None of us do. But think about it for a second. Yeah. Couldn't the Giants really use a Dwayne Harris, a Dominic Hickson? And I'm not even talking about as a receiver. I'm just talking about what those guys did on special. Michael Thomas wasn't a return guy, but he was a great coverage guy.
Yeah, safety Michael Thomas, not receiver Michael Thomas.
Right, safety Michael Thomas. So, that's something I think is a need on this roster right now, but I would not know how to find one.
Has Demario Douglas out of Liberty been taken yet?
I'll take a look while you're doing that.
That's a guy that I think has some return ability, if I'm not mistaken, at Liberty, and he ran a 4.44 at the combine. That's a guy that I think could maybe do something on returns. He's a little smaller.
There's a
kicks. He's only 5'8", 180.
There's a 5'5" guy from Kansas State. He's a smurf.
Oh, Deuce Vaughn.
Deuce Vaughn, who is unbelievably electric on returns.
He's fun. You want to talk about Darren Sproles comp?
Okay.
Deuce Vaughn. He's excellent. That's actually a good name, Paul.
Now, he's really small to play in my offense.
Dom, make sure he hasn't gotten taken yet, Deuce Vaughn. He's still available? Yeah, Deuce Vaughn, please.
Now he would be one unbelievably frenetic return guy, but I don't necessarily see him going down making kick coverages.
Yeah, but I think at this point in the draft, you could use him as a weapon on offense in certain packages too. Though you did just draft Eric Gray. I think there might be some overlap there with Gray and Vaughn.
So anyway, but that's just some food for thought while we're deep into the third day of the draft.
He's available?
Yeah, he is.
Available. Thank you, Dom.
He is a Smurf, but man, is he electric.
He's elusive, man. He hides behind the lineman. You can't see him on the handoff. He's fun. He's a fun player.
He's something.
Let's go to Brian in North Carolina. He's up next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hey, Brian.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you?
What's up?
Paul, that is such a great point that you brought up. I'm a very, very old person, and I've gotten tired. Teams do this. You see this every year. You don't have a great returner. Somebody wants to fill in a safety, a cornerback, a wide receiver, and they get hurt. And I don't know the reasons for it. Maybe they don't practice a lot, but, they never learn, right? Coaches never learn. And so to have somebody to do that is, if it's out there, it makes perfect sense. And then you don't have to worry about someone gets hurt, and then you try to get somebody else out there to do that. And you guys would know what's on the board. But that solves a lot of problems, right?
Yeah, well, you got to be good enough to have the luxury. Remember, the Eagles for years went with the philosophy of the last 3 or 4 spots on our roster will be reserved strictly for special teams guys who we hope never have to play a snap. They went through that for years, for a decade, while they were one of the top special teams in the league. Now, do you think that are the Giants in a position where they can give a spot on their 53 to such a player?
Yeah.
Maybe they are. I don't know.
But maybe it's worth a shot, right? 100 times 0-0. If you've got a couple extra spots, and you've really gotten all the value that you need, and there's a guy out there, why, like you said, why bring somebody in at even if they make it, are they going to stick around for a long time? It's a hit and miss, but if you hit it out of the ballpark, and that part of your game is dealt with.
It's only your 6th or maybe 7th round pick. You haven't spent very much in doing so.
Exactly. The upside is great. So now, Paul, here's the deal. You started talking about food. And so now you got me thinking about having my third lunch. So I'm going to...
Lunch number 3.
Lunch number 3. Yeah, well, I'm a large person. But so I want to talk about the wide receivers. It's a brilliant conversation, but I have to tell you, my father was very, very good friends with Emlyn Tennell.
Yes.
So I was around... Yeah, I was around the drafts, after the training camps as a kid. I went up to Albany, Spider Lockhart, Hank Gola.
Mm-hmm.
I walked in my house one time when I was 18, speaking of food, and there was this enormous man sitting at my table with six peanut butter jelly sandwiches. And I said to my father, "Who's that?" He goes, "A guy he just drafted named Leonard Marshall." I didn't know who he was. All I know is this huge gentleman, and he had a stack of them. Peanut butter jelly is my favorite sandwich. And, of course, I didn't know anything. I sat down.
Only 6? Only 6? When Leonard came here, he was as big as a mountain.
And he was the nicest guy. I said, "Can I have one?" He went, You're like, "Get away."
Yeah, you don't want to take one of his sandwiches. Bad move.
No. So I thought I shared it with you. But let me just say one thing about the wide receiver, because it's such a great conversation.
Yeah, real quick, Brian.
You guys made a great point. Yeah. My point is with, number one, the coaching staff did such a great job with Slate. He was running button hooks 3 years ago, and now they had him running 17, 18-yard slants because that's what he could do, right? And so you bring on this other gentleman from Tennessee, and like you said, he's going to get a little bit of attention, but he just changes the game. Now everybody wants to run. We have a little more to run. Robinson has a different type of skill set. So speed is speed is speed. So anyway, I'll leave it at that, but I just think it's a great point about having speed and just changing the game and the schemes.
No question.
That's it, sir.
Thank you, Brian. Good call, man. Excellent points. 201-939-4513. Let's go back to the phones and say what's up to Ralphie down in Florida. What's up, Ralph?
Hey, guys, how are you, man? I'm just so ecstatic with this draft so far. I mean, think about it, getting 3 first-round grades in a row. Like, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better draft the way it fell down for us. Me personally, like the last caller was saying, to me with the wide receiver room, something like this with just speed all over the field, do you really need an alpha? I don't think so, because the alpha is making a quarterback, trying to feed him the ball. With this kind of team that you have, you got so many options, so many weapons that the ball can spray around. You know what I mean? Jones doesn't have to just lock into one guy, you know? And it just makes me feel with speed on the field just kills. Crossing routes, you can run 4 outs. You got guys that just could burn the field. You can't. Now there's no way you can play that single high safety anymore against us.
Oh, I got a better angle on this for you, and I'm sorry to interrupt. I'll let you go in a second.
Okay. Yeah.
What about you're going with a 5-man protection scheme because you think your offensive line is better now, okay?
Right.
You do that. You got your weaponry on the outside. Those guys are running havoc with spiderweb routes and deep routes all over the place. And now Saquon Barkley, guess what?
Exactly.
Guess what? Saquon has got a lot of room to do whatever he wants to do, whether it's run it or catch it. So it opens things up for him as much as it does for anybody downfield.
That's my point, Paul. Like, it's just like pick your poison. It's pick your poison. Like, if you're going to key on somebody, you can't key on nobody on this offense right now, which is, like, again, with the alpha receiver and all that, that's grim to have an alpha receiver, a 14, 15-yard receiver. But, again, now if you got 4 or 5 guys, each of them getting 600 or 700 yards, look how much offense is on the field at one time. And as far as, like, what you were saying, Paul, you kind of stole my thunder. I wanted to talk about the 6- and 7-round picks. You got to look for special team guys there. You got to look for guys that are going to play special teams. Because like you always said, this roster right now, we're not going to keep all our draft picks. There's no way. We're not a team like that like last year when we needed all the draft picks to kind of build the chemistry, to build the camaraderie of the team. We got players in place now. So 6- 7-round picks are
look, guys, let's not compare the roster to the Philadelphia Eagles now either, okay?
No, of course not. I'm not saying that, John, but what I'm saying is at the end of the day, Paul made a great point. All the draft picks you can have, let's be real, 3 or 4 guys are not making a team.
Whoa, look, dude, they only have 7 picks. They trade away 3 of them.
Right. No, but I agree. No, I was just saying you're right.
They went from 11 a month ago down to 7 now.
So to say 3 or 4 of those 7 aren't going to make it is crazy.
Yeah, I think.
No. I'm not saying now.
I think he meant before.
Before. I got you. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
No, but I'm saying with the 6 and the 7-round picks, again, we need players, but special teams got to get better. Again, like last year, what happened? Everybody was blaming McGahee, but let's be real. He never even knew what players were going to be playing on his special teams because everybody was hurt. He was not bringing in players all over the place. So, again, just to have that solid special team squad will definitely make a big improvement. And that's all I got to say, guys. I love
good stuff, Ralph.
You guys do, man.
Thank you, man. And we wouldn't be doing it if you guys weren't listening and calling in. So we definitely appreciate you guys out there. And look, remember, they did sign Eric Smith, who's a speed guy that should help on specials, too. We haven't talked about him a whole lot.
The receiver from the Jets. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what he's done. But then when you look at his special team stats, the production doesn't match the reputation.
Right. But you were talking about speed guys that could play gunner. He would be in that equation.
And last year, let's not kid ourselves, maybe the best gunner they had was McLeod. Right?
Yeah, and he's still on the roster.
He's still on the roster today. I don't know with the depth at corner. I'm not sure if he makes it or not. But, you know, this is the kind of guy we're talking about that when you say if you can find someone who can at least compete and maybe have the chance to beat them out, you got to try to do it.
And remember, special teams guys, it's usually athletic traits. You want big and fast guys to play on your coverage teams, whether it's on punt or kick. So that's what you're looking for. You're still hunting traits.
And mentality, heart and guts.
Yeah, but my point is that you don't want to send down a bunch of 4, 5, 9 guys that aren't that big on kick coverage because those really fast returners just go and run right past them.
Yes, sir.
201-939-4513. Victor in South Carolina is up next. Hey, Victor.
Hey, Paul. Hey, John. How you guys doing?
What's up, man?
Hi.
Thanks for calling. What do you got?
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. Been a Giants fan for almost 20 years now. This is probably one of the first drafts I've seen where you really do see how lockstep the front office and the coaching staff is. particularly a guy like Tay Banks. I think this guy can truly be a force multiplier on defense. I look at him and I see Marlon Humphrey, what Wink had back in Baltimore.
Very similar. Very similar.
Very, very similar profile, style of play. I really think that it opens up what Wink can do from a blitz schematic standpoint. In terms of having guys that can lock down the outside and truly move around your safeties, linebackers, and different blitz packages, and really affect the passing game in a way like they weren't able to do last year. So excited for him in particular, but overall great draft. And thanks guys for having me on.
No,
thank you.
Appreciate the call, Victor. Good stuff, man. And by the way, I liked his Marlon Humphrey comp. I think we might have mentioned that on Thursday's night show. It's a huge blur now, but I think we did at some point. Maybe it was Friday afternoon. I don't remember. And I thought the caller before that did the Will Fuller comp for Jalen Hyatt. I thought that was very on, too, except that hopefully Hyatt doesn't have the type of hamstring issues and other off-the-field stuff that Will Fuller had going on. But in terms of on-the-field play style, very similar players.
Well, it's that, again, you hit the button for the afterburners, and the guy becomes a puff of smoke.
Right. And then you hope Hyatt can develop into more than that. But right off the bat, that's, I think, where he starts. All right, we got about 9 minutes or so, folks, and we're going to wrap the show up. That'll take us to about an hour exactly. So we probably got time for 2 or 3 or 4 more calls. So give us a ring, 201-939-4513. The Giants' official connected TV streaming app, Giants TV, brings original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. And don't forget to take your fandom to the next level with a season ticket membership. Stay connected to the club all year round, not just on game days. Memberships are now available for the 2023 season. To learn more about all the exclusive member benefits, visit Giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available. Marty and Manahawkin, he's up next. Marty?
Hey, guys, how you doing?
What's up?
I see nothing but smiles on the screen here where every time I look up.
Marty, I got to be honest with you. We've been doing this draft coverage and doing Big Blue Kickoff reaction shows, I don't know what, for 10 years, Paul?
Yeah,
something
probably.
like that. This is as uniformly happy as I've ever heard a group of fans calling up to our post-draft shows. Usually there's always something to nitpick. We've literally had one caller upset that they didn't take a wide receiver in the first round. Then he called back after the third round and said, I take it all back. I'm thrilled they got Jalen Hyatt. And I'm not even being like lying or misremembering. Like, we have not had negative reaction at all. And trust me, our fans are not shy about calling this show with negative reactions. And so far it's been universally positive, which has been great. And frankly, deserved.
Hey, what I wanted to call is my antennas went up when I heard you talking about Deuce Vaughn before. And I watched that kid, and I'll tell you, he was really he's a really good receiver out of the backfield. He's a good pass catcher also.
He is.
And the other thing that I don't know if people realize that his father is a scout for the Cowboys. So I would be on board if we got him. He could be our answer to that guy in Philadelphia. His name is
Darren Sproles or Boston Scott.
Yeah, Boston Scott.
Boston Scott. Yeah. He reminds me a lot that maybe we could have our answer to Boston Scott.
Well, as long as you want to connect some of our guys to the Cowboys, I probably should tell people. I had already put it up earlier on Twitter. Eric Gray, the Oklahoma running back they just took today in the 5th round, his mentor is DeMarco Murray, who had a couple of 1,000-yard years with the Cowboys before he went to Tennessee.
Both Oklahoma backs,
yes,
correct?
Indeed. So there's another Cowboys connection just for the heck of it if you want to decide to nitpick on a Cowboy.
And by the way, very different backs. DeMarco Murray was like 6'3", 225.
Absolutely.
Very different type
Bigger
of player.
and sturdier.
Yeah, that's correct.
But comes with the I'm going to break a tackle mentality.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, guys.
Appreciate the call. I'm curious here. I'm not sure if this player has been taken yet. You talk about hunting traits, right? He is not. Andre Yashivas from Princeton is still on the board. Someone that we've talked a lot about during the draft process. 6'3", 205 pounds, track background, good receiver out of Princeton. You talk about smart guys with size and traits. How would you like a 6'3", 205 guy that ran a 4.43 to be one of your gunners running down on kickoffs? On punts, rather.
I don't know if he has the mentality to be someone to do that.
I don't know
it takes some mentality, and there are some receivers who don't feel that way.
And that's fair, but in terms of physical traits, that's what you're looking for.
Physical traits are fine. You know, that's the kind of guy who you have to interview him and sit down with him and find out about what's going on there before you decide to make that plunge, because he's strictly a numbers guy on paper that is very attractive.
I'll tell you, there are actually a number of wide receivers here that I'm surprised. We talked about A.T. Perry before. He's still on the board, who I'm surprised about. Yashivas is another one. I thought Matt Landers out of Arkansas had a lot of...
I was just going to say, I'm looking at your screen.
He had traits. I think he was a 4.36 guy at the combine, and he's always 6'2". He was a traits guy I liked early day 3.
I'll give you another guy on your screen, Ford Wheaton out of West Virginia.
Yeah, a bigger receiver, and I think Xavier Hutchinson out of Iowa State. He's not fast, but that guy caught everything that was thrown to him at Iowa State. Really good big possession. Like, he reminds me of Hodgins, actually. I think those two receivers are actually really, really similar. And then one other guy I'll throw out there that I saw a second ago pop up, Ronnie Bell out of Michigan, who, doesn't jump off the page in terms of a lot of the traits, but he had a pretty good season for Michigan. He came on at the end of the year. I think he can do a little bit of everything. You want a guy at the back end of your depth chart to try to develop a little bit? I think Ronnie Bell is a pretty good all-around wide receiver, too.
Well, as long as we're just talking about receivers, not that the Giants necessarily need to fill up the room right now, but I'm going to go back to the guy that I suggested to Tony Pauline during our combine, and that's Shaq Davis out of South Carolina State, who averaged over 20 yards a catch at South Carolina State. Again, level of comp was less, but 6'5", runs in the 4.5s, and just an absolute Spider-Man.
We had 2 kickers go off the board. I think that's the first punter that just got taken by the Patriots, Bryce Barringer. All right, so we got 3 minutes. Let's get to the final calls here. I didn't mean to off-track us there. Dave, you're in Wayne, New Jersey. You're up next. Hi, Dave.
Hi, John. Hi, Paul.
What's up?
Great draft, obviously. What I wanted to ask you about was the 5th-round pick for the Giants. Right before then, 2 trades came up. One was Chris Smith, but the second, right before the Giants, was for Payne Durham. Now, Payne Durham was one of the Giants' 30 visits.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he sniped that from the Giants?
I don't know.
I'm sure he did.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know the answer to that question, to be honest with you. I don't, obviously the people upstairs do. I have no idea if that's true or not. I happen to have Eric Gray a good round and a half higher on my board than I had Durham. So for me, if I had the choice between the two guys, I would take Gray 10 out of 10 times anyway. So if that's what happened, it wouldn't necessarily bother me.
I agree with John 1,000% on that one.
And look, I like Durham. I think he's honestly, he's Daniel Bellinger, except not as athletic. I think Bellinger is more athletic than Durham, but Durham is a good blocker. He's got good hands. He's just not a very explosive player. So I think he would have been a fine pick. I like Durham a lot. I think I had him in the 5th round, if I'm not mistaken. I had to take a look at what my rankings were, but I think Gray's a better player.
And really, when you're looking more at the need component, which starts to get a little heavier at this point in the draft.
The Giants have a lot of tight ends in their room already.
Between Sweeney, the blocker, right, and the receiving tight end, and Cager, who just hooked up with the team last year, those guys are going to be fighting for the 3rd, 4th tight end spots behind Bellinger and Waller. So, yeah, the need component at this point in day 3 takes on a heavier burden. And therefore, no. To me, I mean, I tweeted this out all morning, and Gray was one of the guys I was looking at as the developmental running back. I'm very, very happy with that pick.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you that he's a great value pick. I was just wondering because he was one of the Giants' 30 visits, even though he was a tight end.
I understand.
That they had.
Absolutely.
I mean, I got to say, I've been following the draft since the late 50s. And this has got to be one of the most solid drafts we have ever had.
On paper, it looks really nice. I understand. But, it's going to be very hard to pass the 2007 draft because that rookie class just excelled right out of the box, and every single one of those guys gave them something that helped them gain a Lombardi trophy.
Yeah, how about
You're right.
How about we not get ahead of ourselves?
Yeah, so let's not go there. Can we not go to best draft class ever until they do what the 07 guys did?
No, I didn't say the best draft class. I said that, the best day on the draft. Well, we were looking for value. I mean, obviously, best player available. And here we got value picks, places of need, and they were probably almost the best person on our board.
No, I got
Good
you.
stuff.
Appreciate the call, man. And look, and I know people are going to laugh, but guys, just go to a couple years back. I mean, they drafted Daniel Jones and Dexter Lawrence in the same draft. Daniel Jones just got paid $40 million a year, and Dexter Lawrence is about to get paid more than any other defensive tackle in football. You get those two guys in the same draft, ain't bad.
Rule of thumb, if you get 3 starters out of a single draft class, you've been okay. That's the rule of thumb. 3 starters in your draft class. Now, that's just a generic rule. It doesn't indicate how many picks you had to get those starters. But if you can get 3 starters out of a draft class, that's considered doing your job.
Yeah, by the way, Giants also got Julian Love and Darius Slayton in that draft. That's a nice little draft class right there that they had back in 2019. 201-939-4513. Thanks for everybody giving us a call at that number throughout these 3 days. I hope you've enjoyed our draft coverage. I know we've enjoyed doing it and bringing it to you. We're going to try to get some rest. I'll be back with Lance on Monday for Big Blue Kickoff Live. I'm going to try to take a day or 2 off in the middle of the week if I can before rookie minicamp hits at the end of next week. We'll have coverage of that. Again, I'll have a draft season up with Tony Pauline by the early evening. We'll do a couple superlatives from the draft. Then we'll have an overall draft review a little bit later in the week. Make sure you guys go check that out. Paul, as always, I enjoy going through this journey with you, buddy. A lot of fun.
It's been fun, man. It's been fun, and especially this year. And by the way, I'm pretty tired too. And that's hard for me to say.
Which is a feat.
It really is.
And I hope you guys have enjoyed our draft coverage over the past couple of months. We've done our best to kind of bring you a lot of information and help you get to know these prospects so when they get drafted on draft weekend, like they have the last couple of days, you're like, oh, I remember when those guys talked about him. I know this about him, this about him, this about him. I hope we achieved that goal for you. I know a lot of the players the Giants did, in fact, pick are guys that we've talked an awful lot about over the last 2 months. Hope you guys were informed and entertained over these last couple of months. We're going to get some rest. The Giants still have 2 more picks to make. Their next pick is coming up here in about 12 or so picks. So make sure you stay tuned, and we'll have all the information on the website, of course, about whomever the Giants select in rounds 6 and 7. For Paul Dottino, I am John Schmeelk. Thanks for being with us all weekend long for our coverage on Big Blue Kickoff Live. We will see you on Monday at 12:30 when we're back 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend and the draft, everybody.